Well, also your generation also kind of were the generation where the parents were much tougher, discipline wise. I don't know, but in your age, did they still do stuff like no, arranged marriages were probably more like the mature, not even arranged, but you're going to marry this guy.
Right,
and,
right.
you know,
that was the more mature generation.
That was the more mature.
But the same kind of, I want to say spirit or same kind of tone was still presented to my generation, that those morals and those values, which I still feel are good, you know, in a sense, but they were basically said, you know, they believed in the marriage, they believed in the family, you know.
But you also saw
some crazy stuff.
Right. And that was the thing. You saw things that made you feel like maybe we shouldn't stay in the marriage.
Exactly.
Maybe we shouldn't, you know, maybe things should be different. And so you took a lot of that stuff and you transformed how you raised your family based on a lot of the things that happened. And so that's why you decided, you know, we're going to, well, the latchkey kids came about because of that, because we're not going to stay married because you're abusive or this is unhealthy. And, you know, and you were able to realize that and say, okay, you know, we're not going to just stay married forever because it's unhealthy. Or, you know, I'm not going to, you know, the discipline was a little different. And I think because things were so hard and you had to do a lot of different things, you know, going to the garden or working at the potato grader, you know, different things like that. You didn't want, and it was such an experience for you, you didn't want your kids to go through that. So, you made things a little easier for them because you didn't want it to be the same. However, you know, there's a balance that has to be made. And sometimes, you know, some people weren't able to make that balance. So their kid ended up being, you know, the kid who's still at home at 40 years old or 35 years old.
That's true. The other thing that comes to mind, too, is the discipline. I remember basic conversation, go to your room or whatever, and we weren't really heard. And I think that's in the baby boomer generation. We started almost getting to a point where we want to, because of what we felt like was kind of crazy and not right, we want to say, we'll give you the opportunity to voice your opinion.
Exactly.
But then sometimes
you can sit in the living room with us.
Exactly.
Because I remember not, having to go to my room when you had company. So it was very different, But
see, I still think that some of that foundation, when I look at it, I kind of understood why they, you know, grown folks conversation kind of stuff.
Right.
Because then some things you were hearing you maybe didn't understand, or maybe things you really was hearing you didn't hear at the time you need to hear it.
Exactly.
You know, so, you know, you look at, like I said, the negative and the positive about things as well. So that's where, you know, we look at the mature generation, the baby boomer generation, Generation X, and Generation Y, where it is now.
Right.
What do you feel at this point, the Generation Y? Do you think, I personally feel that there's a turn coming that may be back to some of the values. I mean, that's just my opinion. What do you feel?
Which is good because it helps,
absolutely.
Because it helps you, I guess it helps people be able to accept maybe some of the harsher things or some of the things that maybe went on through the different generations or that they may have experienced themselves.
Right.
That there was a good product at the end of all of this. There was something that came out of all of this. So, you know, maybe that evolution was worth it in some way, shape, or form. But back to your question, Generation Y, they're very adaptable, which is good. They have to be because they're in a world that changes so quickly.
That's true.
They're very adaptable, which is good. They're very tech savvy, which could be good and bad because the tech savvy, they're, you know, home on a computer. And I mean, they talk about this all the time. They're, you know, in the house opposed to, you know, racing, you know, having races down the street.
Exactly.
So that leads to childhood obesity and different things like that. So there's a good and bad, which really just kind of gets to the point where there really just needs to be a good balance.
Exactly.
You know, you should never really be an extreme with anything. But the other thing is I noticed that Generation Y also has values with the Go Green efforts.
Yes.
Which is very popular.
Absolutely.
But it also is bringing back some of the basics and, you know, not being so wasteful.
Exactly.
And that makes a big difference right now, considering the years that we were so wasteful and how the outside of the economy, but just our earth has been affected, you know. That itself, I think, is really kind of one of the bigger things. The other thing is they're also, I feel like, a generation, and I think I might have even said something about that. They're confident.
Yes.
So they're also a generation that feels like they could do anything.
Absolutely.
Where I honestly feel like our generation was a generation that didn't feel like that. And it may have been
Generation X?
Generation X
Really?
that didn't feel like necessarily that we could do anything. There were a lot of limits placed on, I think a lot of the things that we did. I can't even really give you a specific example, but I do feel like we didn't necessarily have that open door, or maybe toward the end of that generation, maybe they had more of the open door to that you can, do anything and everything.
True.
But
it's true.
Going back to, we were talking about how in church, how, just our church, not everybody's church experience is the same, but how in church you couldn't, wear pants.
Right.
And you couldn't speak, and you couldn't chew gum, and you couldn't sit here, and you couldn't say that,
and you couldn't
do
read.
that, and you that was only during the song because you could sing. And when you leave, put your finger up, and it's like, good Lord, can I just be me today?
Yes,
like,
can I get a relationship with what we're supposed to be doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. I think a lot of it maybe had to do with even, in the school systems. Like even now, the school systems, again, learning from probably some of the things that, they did or didn't do before, but they offer a lot of information or a lot of career kind of information or experiences. They promote clubs. They promote more social, things. It's not all about sports and just
It's probably being preparing them more for the world.
For the world, which is and you could say it's really, if you look at it all, it's really just the world learning. It's exactly like a kid.
You're right.
You start off here, and you learn about this, and then you do this, and then you figure out what doesn't work, and you do that differently, and you do this, and then, you learn this needs to be done, and down the road, this is going to need. So now let's start looking at that. It's really just like the world just really kind of growing up.
Exactly.
And, and like you said, it does come, some things come around, but those are the things that obviously work, or those are things that are important, that really hold value.
And believe it or not, we got like 25 seconds. Can you believe that?
Okay.
Can you believe that?
Just really quick, Generation Y, they're entrepreneurial, low tolerance for rules, but they lack communication skills.
That's true. That face-to-face. That face-to-face. Wow.
Gosh.
And we almost could do another show,
We're going to have to do another show.
Let's do another show. Thank you. This has been Val, Voices of Wisdom. And if you want to communicate with me, you can contact me at vow.voicesofwisdom@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.